people from wearing pants? Can it ban me from wearing a ski mask? Can it ban me from... The thing is, if you start on this line of banning things for security, we don't know where it ends, and we stop having rights.
Okay, so banning pants seems like a really interesting argument. It has elicited a lot of responses, I can see that. Well, you know, banning pants and banning the niqab, these are two things. You cannot really compare them, that's ridiculous. Because the niqab leaves a person identityless. Pants do not do that. And niqab leaves a person faceless. Pants do not do that. Okay? Thank you. And now going to pass the word on to my friend.
Dear audience, dear judges, dear government, what we are trying to say here is niqab is an extremist ideology rather than religious. We challenge your government to give us any evidence about niqab is a mass or is religious, whether in Islam, whether in like Christianity or any other religion. Added to that, we mentioned the example of society. Mainly, women who wear niqab refuse the concept of society. They refuse any contact with men. How can women wearing niqab can go on the street? How can they teach children? How can they heal people, ill people in hospitals? How can a woman, you don't know her identity, whether a woman or a man, whether an extremist or any other person, can heal you or can teach you or can you send your children to school to be taught by women wearing niqab? This is what we are trying to say here. About freedom, you said that women choose to wear niqab. What about the example of Saudi Arabia? I'm sure that you heard about many examples of girls at schools like were dead because of the fire, because the government refused men to see their daughters and their women without niqab, and they were dead. Why? Because the government need them not to be seen without niqab in front of men. So how can niqab save their life then?
Okay, I would just like to first clear up one thing. When you said that the niqab is not in the Quran, that's not what we're here to discuss, but Islam is also the interpretation of the Quran, is it not? And so if it is the interpretation, it should be left up to one's own discretion, whether they want to interpret it one way or another. And secondly, when you mentioned about the fact that women who wear the niqab don't want to go out in public and everything, my host mom wears the niqab. She lives in Marrakesh. She worked at Maroc Telecom. She goes out into the street. She does everything that I would do, as I go to Arabic school, and with the niqab on. And I think it's preposterous to propose the idea that women who wear the niqab feel that they can't interact in society. There are plenty of women who interact every day with men and women. They just choose to wear the niqab, and when it's a choice, we fully support it.
Just to add, how is that any of our business, right? If she wants to stay, if she doesn't want to interact with our society, we don't have the right to force people to do what they want to do with their lives. If I want to stay in my house, or if I want to not go outside of my house that often, that's 100% my right. The government can't force me to wear certain things or to leave my house at certain times. That is a violation of my freedoms. And then in terms of your argument about there's a difference between pants in the niqab. Well, I could make the argument that sunglasses partially conceal your identity. Hats partially conceal your identity. Hijabs partially conceal your identity. If I do like this with my coat, it partially conceals my identity.
Dear debaters, thank you. You always go back to the pants. I don't know why so. But I want to tell you something. Yeah, there is a difference between a veil, hijab, and niqab. Hijab doesn't cover your identity, while the niqab does. I think you are confusing between those things. And I want to go to the UN Charter that you mentioned. You talked about Article 2, which is a general article. We're talking about Article 18, which specifically talk about the freedom of religion. And in the law, we have lex specialis, lex generalis. The Article 1 and the Part 1 and Part 2 of those articles talk about the principle. But because with freedom comes responsibility, and freedom has limits in order to live in peace, the Part 3 of these articles comes with limits. And the limit is, I'm not surprised, when the national and international security and peace are touched. And this is the main focus that we are trying, the message that we are trying to deliver. In practice, In practice, Niqab has shown us the use and the abuse of Niqab. Niqab have shown us that this kind of behavior will used by terrorists in order to commit crimes. Now we'll go to other two. We are for the freedom of religion because we strongly believe that Niqab, yeah, it is an infringement. It is an infringement to the right to have an identity, the right to live with integrity. That's an infringement that we have to find it right here. And I want to go to another point, the historical point. You talked about interpretation. Yes, Islam is an interpretation, I agree with you. There is 4 madhabs. In those 4 madhabs, 3 say no, and 1 say yes to niqab. And you know which one? It is the Wahhabist one. The one that is giving the money to the Qa'ida. The one that is unfortunately implemented in the Maghreb here, in the Maghreb and in Zaire, in Tunisia, my country, these kind of behaviors. I will talk to you about my university. In my university, one woman with niqab, she once get with a knife and she stabbed one of my friends. Don't talk to me about accepting others because this threatens the peace on the national and international level.
Very much. I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen, our dear opponents here fail to give us the argument they need to give us to win this debate, because the debate says the ban on the niqab is an infringement on one's freedom of religion. What you gave us is the consequences of putting the niqab. It's the dangerous side of putting the niqab. Let's just keep it simple. If I prevent you from doing something you believe in, like for example, you believe in coming here and debate, you believe in debating. If I come there and block you and not let you come down to this stage, of course not as a debater, as a president, of course I'm going to kill your freedom of speech, your freedom of debating. It's the same. Because women wears the hijab or the niqab because they believe in something. They believe in their religion, no matter how, no matter when, no matter what. They believe in something which you can never kill it. And by prevent them and by banning the wearing of niqab, you will kill their religious freedom. Because once I asked you, do you believe in religion, in freedom, religion?
Of course
You said yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We made it so clear.
Dear government, what we are trying to do, what we are trying to say here, and what we want to really to get our point is that it is not about infringement, it is about protection. The government needs to protect all the people, not only individuals. The government, any government in this world, needs to protect, to promote, to provide its people with security. And excuse me, with niqab, and like many facts prove that niqab is so dangerous. Even in Tunisia, after the Arab Spring, many women wearing niqab appeared, and many terrorist acts appeared. So the government here, let us first talk with humanitarian values. Let us forget about religion at once. Let us speak with humanity. We are all humans. We need to promote peace.
But we agree with you 100%. We responded to that argument. Our argument is that where do you draw the bright line, right? For example, okay, so using the excuse of security is what oppressive governments always do in order to deny us of our rights. So if the argument that the niqab uniquely promotes terrorism is ludicrous, because, okay, if you ban the niqab, if I'm a terrorist, I'll put on a hoodie and some sunglasses and do the same thing, and you still won't be able to find me. So does that mean that we should ban hoodies and sunglasses? No, of course not, right? The thing is, you guys have failed to prove any other way in which the niqab is the one thing that's causing terrorists to flourish. Instead, you're just showing that banning the niqab is a way for one group to impose their views and to tell certain groups of people how they want to live their lives. And we're against that, just as we're against the Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia telling women to put on the niqab, because that is also a violation of religious freedom.
And the pants. An interesting argument. Now the problem is, you keep focusing on this one argument when you presented others, such as not just concealing of identity. Niqab is so much more. It is a rejection of having an identity by women. Why is that? Because anything anything that covers your face, anything that when a woman decides to hide her identity from the world, she is not feeling that she can face the world with that identity, with that face. But let's not get into, again, the philosophy. Let's here talk about alternatives. When we speak of banning the niqab, we're not just speaking of being an oppressive government. We're not just talking about security. What we care about is not just security, and that's why we mentioned several arguments. We're talking about helping individuals assert themselves as they should, whether men or women. And why do we do this? Not because we deny women's rights to freedom of religion. It is because we deny the fact that niqab is part of any specific religion. You might tell me people are free to do with their bodies what they want, but then again, that's the role of education. That's why our government, our position here is not just to ban the niqab. It is to educate people in society to accept themselves, to learn about Islam as it should be, as it is, as the Quranic texts say it is, as the 3 different madhahib in Islam say it is. And here, you said you are not for Wahhabism. Tell me, which other part of Islam, which other, I don't know, what do we call it, a derivation of Islam? Which other derivation of Islam supports the niqab, other than the most oppressive one, which is Wahhabism? It oppresses the rights of women, it oppresses the rights of young girls, it objectifies their bodies to the extent where they think their faces are taboo. They cannot face men or women because they believe that they are a walking taboo. This is horrible. And this goes against Islam. Another thing that goes against Islam, it is putting society second. Islam is a very social religion. And here I can cite you to many experts' opinions and many muftis' opinions. The strength of the Quran is that it is a social text also. It defines how society is regulated. It defines the relations between people. And it promotes women's presence. The women in the history of Islam did not cover their faces except a small minority for a specific purpose, and this is why it is no longer applicable. Finally, let me just tell you that our alternative is educating, not just banning oppressively. Educating.
First of all, I would like to remind you that having the freedom to do something does not necessarily mean you have to do it. And somewhere in your speech you brought up the idea of the paradox. Now, dear audience and the honorable judges, let me tell you what the paradox is. The paradox is like stating in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that people are free to practice their religions, and then come and ban one of the beliefs that people have, one of the convictions, one of the religious convictions that these people have. This is in itself an infringement, and that's exactly the debate, the topic we are talking about today, not whether the niqab is so good or so bad.
Okay, let me answer that. Say something really quickly. Okay, sorry. Okay, so one thing that you guys keep bringing up time after time again is the question of the niqab and the hijab and what it does to women. That is a very separate debate, okay? This is talking about whether it is an infringement on one's religious freedom. We need to address the fact that banning something that can be a choice is infringing on freedom, whatever type of freedom it is. You said banning the niqab because it covers your face. And you said also the fact about wanting to, we should be free to do whatever we want with our bodies, but you support banning the niqab. Therefore, do you support banning of tattoos, of piercings, of all other body modifications? Because that is also altering who you are, okay? And this is something that is crucial. You need to recognize the fact that personal choice is not something that can be dictated by a government or anybody else but yourself and your own beliefs. Yes.
Objectifying women, that we are against it. And you talked about freedom of religion, and you think that it has no limits. It has. The UN Charter said it, the European Union Charter said it too, and it can't be absolute. Because the ban won't be like the government come and say, hey, let's just ban the niqab. It will pass by a democratic process, and it will be voted in the parliament, and it will be the will of the people. People will choose to ban the niqab. And it can't be also absolute because, for example, some religions like Shia flagell themselves in the Ashura. Is that acceptable for you? do you think that because we have freedom of religion and because you think it's absolute that people are allowed to flatter themselves and their kids just because you think that freedom of religion is absolute, that women should be objectified just because they want to? Society is responsibility and society should protect its individuals.
But the difference is that people shouldn't have the right to infringe on the rights of others. But if I want to stay in my house, if I want to wear the niqab, if I want to do what I want with my life, my rights shouldn't be infringed upon. There's this argument that, oh, the niqab takes away your identity. Well, that's your opinion. There's no reason why you should enforce that opinion on Ariel's host mom who loves to wear the niqab and feels like it empowers her. You're trying to empower people by disempowering them and taking away their choices.